Lawmakers are back at the state capitol this afternoon for a second day of talks over congressional redistricting. The only issue, not a single bill on the agenda for the House or Senate today is related to that. Most proposed bills that were discussed this morning are related to COVID issues. The majority of those brought up in the Senate specifically target the COVID-19 vaccine, and some of those discuss the idea of not being able to discriminate because of the shot or to establish privacy laws with the vaccine. Another concern, the fact that these bills were barely made available for public comment.
None of us in this room, minus the few that were privileged enough to be a part of the drafting process, had seen any of the bills that we considered yesterday in public health. In addition to that, no slight to the chair or the rest of the members in that room, this is just the way it happened. We've been talking about process. Senator Johnson likes to talk about process a lot. I'm not proud of that process.
The redistricting bills will be taken up in committee meetings later today. We'll have more on those and some of these other bills coming up at 5 and 6. A bill that would have shut down the government by midnight, or prevent that rather, is expected to pass in the Senate this afternoon. But as Deborah Alfarone explains, the bill is less than what Democrats wanted, and the future of the president's agenda remains uncertain.
I begin this morning with some good news.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has announced senators have agreed on a stopgap government funding measure.
With so many things to take care of here in Washington, the last thing the American people need is for the government to grind to a halt.
The measure would fund the government until December 3rd of this year. This concludes a bitter battle back and forth between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats agreed to drop the provision to raise the country's debt limit. The next battle between Republicans and Democrats is the debt ceiling. The House voted to keep government spending at current levels until December 2022. But Republicans say they'll sink the measure in the Senate.
That their unified Democratic government is fully capable of fast-tracking a debt limit increase on their own.
Republicans accuse Democrats of only wanting to raise the debt limit so they can pay for President Biden's domestic agenda. And that includes a $1 trillion infrastructure bill, plus a $3.5 trillion bill that would fund social, health, and environmental programs.
Here's the central truth that our Democratic colleagues don't want the American people to focus on, and that is, if you go on a huge spending binge, you will have to borrow more money. But then they want Republicans to facilitate it all by enabling the borrowing that will be necessary to fund all that spending.
But Democrats argue raising the debt ceiling is about paying for spending that occurred during the Trump administration.
Make no mistake where the blame lies. Squarely at the feet of the Senate Republicans.
If Republicans refuse to participate in raising the debt ceiling and Democrats don't raise it on their own, the U.S. will default on its financial obligations by October 18th. And that could trigger a recession. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
The measure that passed in the Senate today also provides money needed for disaster relief and Afghan refugees. Turning to COVID-19 in Arkansas, the fight continues here. Boosters are big right now. It's one of the headlines emerging from this week's numbers. Governor Asa Hutchinson pointed out that the majority of the more than 9,000 vaccine doses given out on Wednesday were third shots. The demand is there, but the governor also said he wants to see more people get the shots that add them to the list of 1.3 million fully vaccinated. They need to get that one J&J or their first two Moderna or Pfizer to be added to that list. More than 1,100 new cases came in on Wednesday. We had gone 3 days before that in a row with fewer than 1,000 new infections in a single day. But active cases, good news here, fell by another 238. If the trends continue this way, we could have fewer than 10,000 active cases later this week. Meanwhile, the next battle in the fight over vaccine mandates could happen at the airport. Airlines are stepping up the pressure on staff to get vaccinated, but a small group of pilots and crews are refusing to comply. As Errol Barnett explains, that could mean new travel delays for passengers.
As people start making holiday travel plans, pilot unions are warning that staff shortages could scramble family vacations when the federal vaccine mandate takes effect.
How could holiday travel be negatively impacted by a vaccine mandate?
Well, if in fact the pilots who are not vaccinated are put on unpaid leave or terminated, that's more than 4,000 pilots at American Airlines that will not be able to fly.
Captain Dennis Tager is spokesperson for the Allied Pilots Association and its 15,000 American Airlines pilots. Its vaccination rate is higher than the national average, but Tager says that leaves over 4,000 of their pilots holding out.
If indeed the executive order for the mandate on vaccines hits, it'll hit right in the December timeframe.
So both APA and Southwest's Airline Pilot Association are asking for exemptions before President Biden's executive order mandating vaccines takes hold.
To vaccinate or to not vaccinate.
Transport Workers Union Local 514 President Dale Danker voiced his resistance to the rule.
I just don't think the government ought to give a company the right to violate the privacy between you and your doctor and your personal health.
This comes as the termination process begins for almost 600 United Airlines staff who refuse to comply with its mandate. That number is dwarfed by the more than 66,000 who are vaccinated. American Airlines CEO Doug Parker is pleading with his staff, but not requiring them to do the same.
Please go get vaccinated now before the end of this month, because we're all going to get vaccinated before too long, one way or the other.
Now, we should note both Tager and Danker are fully vaccinated themselves. They just disagree with across-the-board government mandates. But the data on this is clear. When airlines like United initiate their own across-the-board vaccine mandate, it works. Errol Barnett, CBS News at Reagan National Airport.
Most viewed on thv-at-noon this afternoon, Little Rock's Park Plaza Mall now under a foreclosure order. We're following the story closely and we'll have more tonight at 5 and 6. Something that we do know right now, Arkansas Business reports that Dillard's owns its store locations at the mall and the land that they are built on, so Dillard's can stay open regardless of what happens to the mall. In recent years, we've heard a lot about the decline of shopping malls across the country. We want to hear from you this afternoon. Do you still go to the mall and buy things there in person? Weigh in on thv-at-noon.com/vote. Right now, 100% of people say yes.